Hey everyone, Ken Horowitz from Sega16.com, back again with another pickup video. Got some stuff this time that I'm really happy to finally find. Been looking for a lot of it for a while. Some good Sega stuff, some new Game Gear games. I haven't gotten any Game Gear games in a while, and I was finally able to find some of the games that were on my list that I really wanted to play. I've been very curious about the Game Gear library over the last couple of months because I've never played Game Gear before. I got one recently. So it's interesting to go see how the 8-bit ports compare to the Genesis ports. So let's get to it. First thing I got, some Atari stuff. Kaboom. This is probably my favorite Atari game of all time. I have two sets of paddles. Well, a set of paddles that has two. But now I can play Kaboom the way it was meant to be played. I love Atari games. I love the fact that I can buy this game, which is from 1981, pop it in my Atari and it boots up perfectly. People tell me, why don't you just emulate them? Like, yeah, good luck emulating Kaboom. It's not the same without the paddles. I also got Cosmic Art, which was developed by Rob Fulop. Coincidentally, the same guy who worked on games like Night Trap for the Hasbro Nemo before that was discontinued and those games were moved over to the Sega CD. But love this game. And I finally got it back. I had this game a long time ago. Back after the crash, around 1986, 85, there was a department store near my house, in the mall near my house, named Zayre. They were like Kmart, kind of above Kmart, but at that time Walmart wasn't really around yet. So it was kind of like one step above Kmart. And they had a bin right near the door in the men's section for some reason. They had this big bin and the games were 99 cents. And I went there with $20 and I bought up as many, I think I was able to buy 19 games because of sales tax. But one of the games I got, and probably the one that I paid the most of the bunch, was Cosmic Arc. Love this game. I also got one PlayStation 2 game. I got Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, which I know it's probably better on PC, but I don't care. I am a console peasant. And I'm also a Voyager fan. A lot of people don't like Voyager. I don't know why. Sure, Next Generation was probably the best of the bunch, but I actually prefer Voyager to Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine had that soap opera style of narrative that if you missed an episode or two, you were completely lost about what was going on. And Voyager kept the whole overlying story, but each episode was pretty much a contained sub-story within it. So you could miss an episode and wouldn't be completely lost. And I also like the dynamic of these people lost in the Delta Quadrant all on their own. They had to make all kinds of changes and adaptations to their ship and stuff to survive. And the game, I had this before when it came out. I played it, beat it, but I was binge watching Voyager again on Netflix, and I felt like playing it again. And while the graphics don't hold up, the gameplay does. I also like the fact that it has full voice cast of the crew from the show and everything. So really good game to get back into. I got some Nintendo stuff. When this past summer, in July, I went to Orlando, drove all the way to Tampa. It was like a 90-minute trip to go to the Wagon Wheel Flea Market, to go to the booth of a guy named Scott Squatch. He's on YouTube. Video Game Sellers is his channel. I'll put the link in the description. And I've been watching his show since it started. I wanted to go to his booth, so I dragged my family all the way to Tampa to go to a flea market booth to buy video games. Turns out my wife and kids ended up buying more stuff than I did, so my wife was mad on the way there, but she was quite happy on the way back. But I managed to get some good stuff at his booth. I got Advanced Guardian Heroes for the Game Boy Advance, which was not as good as the Saturn version. I mean, I didn't enjoy it as much as the Saturn version, but it's still a solid game, rock solid. So another game I got is Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance. About a year ago, I got Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, and I love that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time, my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time. Played through it, beat it. About 5 months before that, I'd played through and beaten the original Metroid, and I really wanted to play some more 2D Metroid, so I went, and I'd already beaten this one when it came out, and also Zero Mission, but I really wanted to play it again, so I went and got it while at the Wagon Wheel, and I've been playing it and enjoying it. While there, I also picked up Castlevania Adventure 2, Belmont's Revenge for the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, which is a lot better than the original. I love the Game Boy music, just the sound of the original Game Boy, the music, especially in Konami games like this and Batman. I just love it. And I'm a fan of these Game Boy Castlevania games. A lot of people aren't. They're really hard, balls hard, but they're fun. I enjoy them. I also picked up Quake 2 on the N64 while in Orlando. Prefer the PlayStation version, the original PlayStation version, because the soundtrack is incredible. Not as good as the original Quake though. I kind of prefer that, and I'd rather play the original Quake on the Saturn because it's got that neat Trent Reznor soundtrack. But this is a good version for the Nintendo 64. I also picked up Phalanx while at the Wagon Wheel. This is the last game I got at the Wagon Wheel. Game with the worst cover art in the history of gaming. And the last Nintendo things I got were Ring King, a game with the most questionable round screen of all time, and Totally Rad for the Nintendo NES, which was one of the first NES games that I remember having parallax scrolling. The game's alright. It's not as good as I remembered it. I think mostly what I remembered about it was the parallax scrolling, but it does have some neat parallax scrolling, but the game itself isn't as good as I remembered it. Now for some Sega stuff. Got some Dreamcast games. Daytona USA, which is an excellent version. Too bad you can't play it online anymore, but it is great. And my favorite racing game on the Dreamcast, Test Drive Le Mans. I love this game. Graphics still look great. The gameplay is just incredible. So much to do, so many tracks. It's a wonderful, wonderful game. I got a game, only one Genesis game. I got this for my daughter. She's a major Tom and Jerry fan. I got it because you can play two players simultaneous as Tom and Jerry. It's not the greatest platformer, but my youngest daughter, who loves Tom and Jerry, she loves to play it with me. She loves to be Jerry. I always have to be Tom. But it's hard, really hard. The worst part about it, I think, is the fact that when you die, they send you all the way back to the beginning of the stage. That's just brutal, especially for a game you want to play with your kid, you know? She dies all the time. We have to go all the way back to the beginning. I got a Saturn game, Crusader No Remorse. This one doesn't get a lot of love, and mostly it's because of the control. Trying to play this with the Saturn controller can be really difficult. But that's if you try to use all the items, all the weapons. I don't use all the weapons. I find a weapon or two that I like, and I stick with that. And aside from that, the gameplay isn't that bad. I like the isometric perspective, and I like going through the base, exploring all the different hallways and everything. That's pretty cool. And the last thing I got were 3 Game Gear games. I got Spider-Man, which was done by Flying Edge, because by this time I don't believe Sega had the rights to Spider-Man anymore. I think the Spider-Man on Sega CD was the last one they did. This one, not as good as the Genesis version, obviously. This is a port of the Genesis version. But it's not that bad. A lot better than you would think coming from Flying Edge. I also got GP Rider, which is basically Hang-On on the Game Gear. And haven't played much of it yet, but what I've played I've liked so far. It's nice to have a decent little racer on the Game Gear. And the one I wanted to get the most, Batman Returns, which is so much better than the Genesis version. Everything about this version is better. The level design is more enjoyable. The graphics are good for the Game Gear. The music is great. And it's not as confusing and as just brutally difficult as the Genesis version. So I'm very happy to get that. I was looking to get some more Game Gear games, and this one was on my list, as were the others. So that's everything I got this time. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to head over to Sega16.com and check out our reviews, features, and interviews. Head over to the forum and join the community. Like the video on Facebook, thumbs up here on YouTube, or vice versa. I always get those two mixed up. Like us, thumb us up wherever we are. Check us out on Twitter as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, take care.